Welcome to Daily Records. I am Tommy Burton, and we are talking about the Beatles. And for the month of July, it's a special month-long edition of Daily Records. And we are rolling through the original British catalog. And the next one that is up is the 7th album by the Beatles, released on August 5th, 1966, Revolver. The controversy's there. Everyone debates about it. Best ever Beatles album? I don't know. You decide. I'm not going to say one way or another. It's a fantastic album. And this really may be the full departure for the band, where they're transitioning from a live band into a studio band, and the innovations that they would be known for in the 60s. And so this was the last album released before they completely retired as a live unit. And it's really the first album they released that featured a lot of studio technology. Now, Rubber Soul bridges that. You can hear it. Now, George said in the anthology that Rubber Soul and Revolver were like a double album. I don't agree with that. I used to sort of be able to see it, but not anymore. I think Rubber Soul and Revolver are two very distinct albums, and I don't think that they go together as well as that, because this one is more, I hate to use the word psychedelic, because maybe I don't know what psychedelic means. You guys can correct me. This was a discussion that was had by James Griffiths on the Facebook group. But I don't associate a lot of the Beatles with psychedelic, but people say that, particularly the track Tomorrow Never Knows. I can understand it. I do know this. I know that Tomorrow Never Knows is a song that I like to turn up really, really loud and just have it just blaring into my ears. But there's also really sweet moments. The string octet on Eleanor Rigby, very minor key sounding song with a fantastic melody and lyric by Paul McCartney. The Indian music is starting to permeate from George, Love You Too. And so it is quite different from anything that the Beatles have been doing up until this point. Now, I think the recording studio had become a haven for the band, and so as they began to experiment, those experimentations really took hold of the album. Now, the album does kick off with a George Harrison song, "Taxman," a straight-ahead rocker featuring a lyric from George where he's railing against the tax system that a lot of top earners like the Beatles were paying under Harold Wilson's Labor Party government, which was a lot of money. So George, like a lot of people, like Bob Dylan, wrote a song about it. We talked about Eleanor Rigby, wonderful, wonderful string composition, not at all a rock and roll song. I'm Only Sleeping. This is where John is starting to show a little bit of the drug influence there. And it actually wasn't on the U.S. version of Revolver. It was cut. But it's just very dreamlike. Love You Too. We talked about that. Indian influence, raga rock. We heard a little bit of it on Norwegian Wood from Rubber Soul, but it's right in there in full effect on this song. Here, There, and Everywhere. Beautiful Paul McCartney ballad. With a very, very sweet lyric. I think that this is the track that I believe has been credited as influencing Brian Wilson and Pet Sounds and writing God Only Knows. And then there's I think it's a children's song, Yellow Submarine. It's just this silly little story. Ringo sang the lead vocal, but it's got a lot of sound effects and a lot of little bits going on to please the ears. A lot of fun. And, of course, that track is just brought back to reality with She Said, She Said. A very just sort of psychedelic, here I am using that word again, but a track with like this rangy, this guitar and Lennon doing this just very in-your-face vocal. Good Day Sunshine, classic Paul McCartney melody. And Your Bird Can Sing, funny enough, a kind of a bird-sounding song. And so I think there is a little bit of a nod there. For No One, this was a song that Paul wrote for Jane Asher, who is his longtime girlfriend at this point, who's an actress. But a beautiful French horn solo played on that track by Alan Civil. Dr. Robert, where the band sort of talks about, the drug influence a little bit. I Want to Tell You, another George Harrison song. Got to Get You Into My Life. Paul is wearing some of his R&B again with a good driving brass-driven song. But later covered by Earth, Wind, and Fire in a funky version. And then of course, Tomorrow Never Knows, which is this is where the Beatles completely go off the deep end with the tape loop, and it just it pushes it. This is what Tomorrow Never Knows sounds like. So it's a great marriage of art and music. Revolver, cover art by longtime Beatles collaborator Klaus Vormann, who they met in Germany back in the early days. And just a highly influential album, and it does hold up. It's one of those albums that has not really ever gone through the wash, and like a lot of stuff where people say, oh, it's great, and then a few years later, it's not that great. I think Revolver's one of those that's almost universally agreed that, yeah, it's pretty great. So there you have it. Revolver in its original British configuration, today's daily record. Like, comment, subscribe, share, follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's TommyBurton75. In the meantime, I will see you all again tomorrow with another daily record.